Hey, Prince Magnum, when are we going to get to cooking again? Stick around, I got a real doozy for you. Hello again, and welcome to the Prince Magnum channel. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. This is another episode of Surviving Romance. Here on Surviving Romance, I occasionally like to kind of cross some of the other stuff from other other series and kind of incorporate them, into other series every now and again. This is not a full-on crossover, but we're going to kind of touch base on a couple little things. And you're going to see where this is going to go in a moment. Alright. Economy is still a shambles. Everybody's strapped for cash. Okay? Let me give you two scenarios. The first one being, as I said, strapped for cash. You got $10 in your pocket. You have to feed you and your wife, or nowadays, because we all got families, you got to feed you, your wife, and a couple of kids. You only got the $10, okay? I'm going to show you an easy recipe that you can do on $10 or less, depending on how you play it. And at the end, you'll have more knowledge on how to prepare a good-sized meal. Kind of a one-and-done meal for you and your family, or just you and your wife. That will take care of you all for a little bit. But there's another stone, the second bird, if you will, that we're going to take out with this single stone. I'm one of those prepare for a natural disaster type people. I'm a prepper, and you'll hear me, make comments about the zombie apocalypse, and we'll do an occasional video on that where this isn't necessarily the case. But one of the things that I hear commonly talked about in the prepper community is some people will say, if you want to be a proper prepper, you have to buy X amount of this stuff, you have to buy X amount of that stuff, and that's all fine and well. But more and more we're starting to hear the prepper community say, in a survival situation, the buying, basically buying the expensive equipment and throwing it at a survival situation is not a replacement for a lack of skill. Well, the same thing goes with preparing what kind of supplies, as far as like food goes. The same thing goes there. A lot of the preppers will say I think I heard one of them say you had to buy 5 to 10 pounds of flour. What am I going to do with 5 to 10 pounds of flour? I know what I'm going to do with it, but do you know what you're going to do with it? Okay, things like that. And one of the things that this one prepper added, I forget the guy's name, but it was a good video. But he suggested like 10 pounds of dry pasta. There's a lot of you out there, a lot of you young ones that don't even know how to prepare dry pasta. Now, I'm not picking on y'all. You never learned. So because of this, we're going to take some time out on Surviving Romance, and that's the second bird. So what we're going to do is, in one video, I'm going to show you how to make a meal on very little money, or in the worst case scenario, you're in a survival situation, a natural disaster has occurred, and you got to feed the family, okay? Or you got to feed you and the other half. Any which way you slice it, you're okay. All right. So so basically, from here we're going to cut away. I'm going to do some narrating, got some video to show you, and when we're done, we're going to come back. We're going to talk for a moment, kind of do the executive recap, and at the end of it all, we're going to end it as usual. All right. So I will see all of you on the other side of this.
Okay, folks, let's get underway. here's what you're going to need. Some penne rigattas, about 2 pounds, half a Vidalia onion, medium size, 3 cans of white, a chunk chicken, a can of tomato soup, and a jar of mushrooms. Canned is fine. I would use 2 then, though, depending on your flavor. That's all you're going to need for the most part. And of course, a few additional ingredients, but we'll get into that as the video progresses. But for the bulk of it, this is all you're going to need. All right, let's get down to cooking. All right, first things first, you're going to put a little bit of olive oil, classic olive oil, cold press. Leave the extra virgin again for dipping sauces and salad dressings. You're going to put your half of Vidalia in. If you can't get Vidalias, red onion will do just fine. Avoid the white and the yellow in this particular instance. I don't think it would work out. I guess it might work out. Depends on your flavor. All right. Get your heat to a low setting. And once the onion is all coated up, throw in a little bit of kosher salt. Now, at any point, if you hear a lot of sizzling or you see things turning brown, turn the heat down, okay? It's very important that you remember that this is a sweat, not a saute, okay? We're not looking to bring on color. We're looking to drive off excess moisture to concentrate the flavors, okay? We just want to concentrate the flavors. All right. If you are so inclined, like I was for this video, to cut down on time, go ahead and start your pasta. Get your pot up to a nice rolling boil and add salt to the water till it tastes, at the level of what you might consider seawater, okay? By salting now, you avoid the problem because for whatever reason or another, if your cooking water isn't salted, you can salt as much as you want later. Your pasta will still taste dead. Again, we use kosher salt for this. I do not use table salt. Table salt makes me very ill. Something to do with the iodine, I imagine. All right. Now, again, if you're cooking pasta and you're worried about boilovers, you have 2 options. Well, one of them isn't an option, but the other one is more preventative sort of thing. If you're worried about boilovers, watch the pot. And if you're still worried about it, get a bigger pot. An 8-quart stock pot will do just fine, okay? And as a matter of fact, if you were doing string spaghetti, the thin spaghetti or regular spaghetti, I would recommend using an 8-quart stock pot anyways. Now, at this point, you've noticed that I've moved back to my sauce pot or sauce pan, and I've added the chicken at this point. Now, is it necessary to go ahead and cook canned chicken? Well, I would say just do it just as a precautionary thing. And the flavor of the onion will now start melding with the chicken because chicken breast doesn't have a whole lot of flavor to begin with unless you do something with it. All right. Again, you'll notice I'm moving back and forth between the 2 pots. If you don't think you can do that, do one at a time, and I would do the pasta first, and then once the pasta is done, put it in a glass bowl or a wooden bowl, okay? Unvarnished wooden bowl would be best, all right? All right, back to the sauce. Actually, before we start talking about the sauce again, you'll notice that I keep occasionally taking bits of pasta out and tasting it. Some of you out there have some weird notions about how to do doneness for pasta, and I'm scratching my head at that because I've seen people throw pasta up against the wall, and if it sticks, it's done. I've seen people smash it under a table leg, and if it smashes a certain way, then it's done. That's ridiculous, okay? Don't do that, okay? Food doesn't like violence. What I do is, if I take a piece of pasta out, You know, whether it's spaghetti, penne regatta, whatever, it doesn't matter. If I take a piece of pasta out and I bite into it, and there's kind of something there for the teeth to get a hold of, that's good enough for me. Okay, I want just enough of them. If it's a crunch, you got more cooking to do. If it's mush, it's overdone. But if it's just enough for the teeth to get a hold of, like you're still biting into something, like almost the best way I could describe it, if it's, you know, like the pasta version of biting into a French baguette, you've done it right. Okay, you're not looking for like a crunch of any sort, but you're not looking for mush. That in between point. All right, that's, to me, is perfectly done. There's nothing wrong with mush. I mean, some people like polenta and grits. That's mush. If you like that, that's fine. Go ahead and make grits or polenta. But me, I like, you know, I like a little, you know, a little something for the teeth to get a hold of. Okay. Again, you'll notice that the pot is trying to occasionally boil over. That's why you don't see me getting that far from it. Okay. If you're worried about boil overs, again, get a bigger pot or just keep an eye on the dang thing. Either which way, a pot of boiling pasta. Do me a favor. If you're worried, you know, don't walk away from it. All right. That pasta is actually done. That's why you got the thumbs up. All right. At this point, I'm getting a colander. If you're going to refrigerate this at any point, go ahead and rinse it. If you're not going to, if you're not going to refrigerate it, rinsing it is, you don't have to do that. Okay. If anything, the loose starch that's left on the pasta is actually going to help the sauce cling to it a little bit better later on in the video. Okay. Again, I'm going to point something out that a lot of people tend to mistake. Some of you might be saying, well, Prince Magnum, why didn't you use spaghetti noodles? Spaghetti really is not designed for what we use it for in this country. A lot of Italians scratch their head at it, and it's just one of those things. Honestly and truthfully, I have found penne regatta, rigatoni, your tubular pastas or your shaped pastas to be the best for heavy sauces. Spaghetti noodles I do keep, and what I like to do with that is I'll roll it with classic olive oil, a little bit of crushed raw garlic to be precise, and maybe mix in some nuts or just different things like that, and maybe some Parmesan cheese or Asiago cheese. But that's me. Okay, if you like that, if you like your spaghetti and meatballs, hey, who am I? All right, let's continue to talk about our sauce. As time goes on, you see me adding more and more ingredients to the sauce. This is important to remember, okay? The sauce, all I'm trying to do right now is concentrate flavors. When I added the tomato, when you see me add the tomato soup, I don't add anything else after that, okay? At that point, I'm trying to concentrate the flavors. Now, if you want a more loose sauce, add a little bit of chicken broth, not chicken stock, chicken broth. There's a difference between the two, but you'll add you can add a little low sodium chicken broth to it. Carton is just fine. Homemade would be better. Just add a little bit to it. That'll loosen it up, but I would still let it kind of reduce down a little bit. And the reduction, you're going to find that I do that on medium heat, just enough where a few bubbles are breaking here and there. Reductions, don't rush those, okay? Just don't rush those. Also, something else that needs to be noted. You're seeing me use a silicone spatula with a wooden handle. The pan that I'm using, the saucier that I'm using right now, or saucepan, whatever you want to call it at this point, is a non-stick pan. All right, do me a favor, folks. If you're using a non-stick pan at some point, please do not use anything abrasive in these things, okay? The coating in there is fragile when it comes to abrasive things, so don't use a metal whisk. If you want to use a whisk, use a silicone one, a plastic one. I don't care. Just don't use a metal one in there. Don't use a metal spatula. Okay. When you go to clean this, please do not use steel wool or a Brillo pad or whatever. This should be common sense, but a lot of you out there make mistakes like that. Okay. So don't do that, please. All right. All right, at this point, you're going to see me pour on a little bit of oil. Again, classic olive oil, okay? Not cold press. Cold press, classic olive oil is just fine. Not extra virgin. Again and again and again. That is, extra virgin olive oil is used for its fruity flavor, okay? That's not what we're going for here. So classic is just fine. Don't spend, extra virgin olive oil is not for high heat methods, and it's really designed for salad dressing and for a dipping sauce. If you've ever been to an expensive Italian restaurant, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so don't make that mistake. Trying to use high heat with extra virgin olive oil, you will not be happy with what happens. Okay. Now, at this point, you're seeing me check the reduction. Basically, I want my sauce to kind of cling to that silicone spatula. I want it to drip slowly. Okay, I want it to kind of hang on to it, because if it's hanging onto a silicone spatula, it's going to hang on to my pasta, and it's going to cling really nicely. Okay, again, for this type of sauce, shaped pasta. Okay, shaped pasta. Tubes, spirals, things that look like I don't care. Okay, shoot, while we were shopping for pasta one day, I seen some that were shaped like beer mugs. Just fine. Okay, this sort of stuff is just fine. Again, very important that we remember that. Real quick, as we're coming close to the end of the video, well, this part of the video, it should also be noted that if you're not a big fan of mushrooms, put something else in there. If you're not a big fan of onion, put something else in there. This is just an idea, okay? Here on the Prince Magnum channel, I try my best to avoid strict recipes. You should be allowed to play around with how you like to eat your food. We all have different tastes. If you like it, I said at the beginning, a Vidalia or red onion will do. If you like that pungent, onion flavor, by all means, go right on ahead and use the white or the yellow. It's your food. Do what you want. Okay? That's very important. Also, you're going to see me add black pepper to this to the sauce. If you're serving it for guests and you don't want the look of black pepper in there, try some white pepper. But be forewarned, white pepper isn't as strong as black, so you may need to use a little bit more. Okay? Again, it's your food. Do what you want to it. Now, I will caution you. You may not want to add a whole lot more salt to your sauce. The reason being is canned soup, because we use the canned soup for a sauce, already has a ton of salt in it. Also, for the sweat, we added salt. Okay, we added a couple of good-sized pinches of salt to the sweat at the beginning. Okay, if you want to add a little bit more, go ahead, but I would avoid that temptation, because there's already a lot of salt in there, and we did a reduction, so a lot of that's already going to be concentrated flavor anyways. This cook here, who's doing this video right now as we're speaking, I don't salt things to make them taste salty. I salt them to turn it up. That's why even in desserts, you'll see me a lot of times add just a little bit of salt to kind of turn up the volume of a dessert. It's not there to make it taste salty. Those of you who add a ton of salt to food to make it taste salty, you might need professional help. Okay, that there's something going on there that you think you need that much salt. Okay. Again, I'm also going to tell you that a little bit of salt does have some health benefits. Okay. Um, a whole lot of salt is bad for the heart. Okay, it's not good. All right, so just pick a middle ground. All right. Also, you will hear me constantly say kosher salt. That is my salt of choice. Okay, for most everything. Occasionally, you will see me use sea salt in other applications, but again, I don't use table salt. Okay, for whatever reason or another, table salt doesn't really taste good to me, and I get sick every time I eat table salt. Okay, so do me a favor, if you're like me, avoid table salt. And honestly, when I go to pinch table salt, I don't have as much control over it. The thicker, more jagged flakes of kosher salt works just fine. Okay, if you know, and honestly, kosher salt is not that much more expensive than table salt, and it doesn't have the anti-clumping agents in it. It does a great job, and to me it's more of a pure saltiness without the me in the bathroom throwing up later on. All right, here we are. This is what it looks like. But if you're like me, you like to add a few other ingredients every now and again. How about some New York sharp cheddar, which is what, this is the wife's bowl. That right there is freshly grated Asiago cheese. Freshly grated Parmesan will work just fine too. It's your food. Again, you're welcome to put whatever you like on it. All right? That brings us to the end of this narration, and I'll see you all on the other side of this.
Welcome back. If you stuck with us this long, because I know it was a little long-winded, I appreciate you all sticking with me this long. Again, I'm not picking on anybody. This is just for information. I know there's some of you out there, when I point something out and say this is what's wrong with the situation, some of you get a little, bite me. Anyhow, again, this isn't, this is for information. This is a how to do. If you're strapped for cash, because we all got it, we all got to eat, and some of you out there, you got a couple of dollars in your pocket, so automatically you rush over to your local fast food joint when this meal prepared for 1 to 2 people could last you a couple of days. Think about that for a moment, okay? And the other thing is if you are in a situation where you have, you've had a natural disaster in your area, it's going to be a little while before the National Guard is able to get in there and do their thing. This is a great way to prepare for such a case. So you will now know how to survive, and your survival chow doesn't taste like mud. So there you have it. I hope you all really enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it. It's now one of Princess Faye's favorite dishes. She absolutely loves it. I love making it. I love eating it. So there you have it. If you would like more videos like this, please leave a comment in that section right down there. Again, if you leave any hate whatsoever, be expecting one of 2 things. Either A, I'm going to just delete it because I personally don't care what you have to say as far as hate goes, or number 2, you're going to get made fun of. There's a guy who actually found out what happens when, I pointed him out, I called him out. And we'll talk about that at another, an episode of In Your Face. If you're not subscribed to the Prince Magnum channel, now would be an excellent time. We're getting ready to get into a whole lot of crazy stuff, and it's going to get interesting from here. And if you're really savvy, you're going to hit that bell icon, and you'll be notified every time we upload a new video. As usual, get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is, just do something with yourself. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet. And as always, if nobody has told any of you out there that they love you, Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.
Good night, ladies.